The Chargers offense was absolutely abysmal in their first preseason performance, and it has brought up pressing questions about whether or not Easton Stick should be the primary backup quarterback on this team.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Drogemeyer, and we've been covering the Chargers together now for 9 seasons, but this is our 7th year as the host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day. Thank you to the everydayers out there for making us your first listen, and to make sure that you never miss the show, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from. David, what do we got today?
Well, Daniel, Jim Harbaugh was on the sidelines in the NFL for the first time in 10 years as he was coaching the Chargers, and I'm not sure that he liked what he saw from the quarterback position at all in this first preseason game of the 2024 season. However, on defense, I think there was a lot to like. A lot of people that showed up, showed out. I think Jesse Minter schemed up some great things, and I think there's a lot of excitement behind that side of the ball, and we're going to talk all about this first preseason game.
Yeah, and I think the exciting thing about Jesse Minter is if that's him keeping it kind of vanilla, it's exciting to see what it's going to look like when it gets a little bit more complex. But today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. David, the only place you can start as far as this game goes is with the offense, which was abysmal. And we'll talk about Easton Stick, but as a whole, just a really, really poor showing offensively. And I mean, when I say poor, that's probably the understatement of the century, because there's bad, and then there was what happened on Saturday night. I mean, we're talking 6 straight 3-and-outs to start the game. Almost total futility, whether it's the passing game or the running game. Couldn't get anything going either way. The first 6 drives the Chargers had, they had 16 plays. They had 15 yards on those 16 plays. Jesus. In 6 drives, they averaged less than 1 yard per play. And it just looks bad on everyone, right? It looks bad on Harbaugh. It looks bad on Greg Roman. It looks especially bad for Easton Stick. But just no matter how you slice it from this game, it was just a really terrible performance, even judging by obvious preseason standards.
Yeah, I mean, they got absolutely dominated in the time of possession aspect of the game, where the defense was on the field for 39 minutes in this football game. They only had 210 yards of total offense, 121 yards passing, and an interception, and only 77 yards on the ground. And if you take 25 of those yards away from the running back or the quarterbacks that contributed to that number, it sounds a whole lot worse. The offensive line, I think, did not play particularly well, especially on the interior. The running backs didn't really get much. They didn't have much room. The receivers didn't really get an opportunity. There just wasn't a lot to like on the offensive side in this first preseason game.
And that's why it's a layered conversation, because it's not just that Easton Stick looked bad. It's that because Easton Stick looked bad, none of the receivers could really look good, right? Yeah. The tight ends couldn't really look good in the passing game. Everything, the offensive line looks worse when you can't get rid of the ball or takes a sack, whatever that may be. Where you're talking about 2 of 13 on 3rd down, 0 for 2 on 4th down, 3 sacks allowed. Yeah, I mean, there's no way to really cut it as a good offensive performance by any means, anything less than just terrible. But it started with Easton Stick. And I mean, when you're talking about 5 for 13, 31 yards, 2.4 yards average, an interception, and a passer rating of 14.6.
That's a real stat line.
Yeah, that's what actually happened. And this is the problem. I've said before that, last year, those last 4 games with what he was dealing with, obviously there's the 63-21 game to the Raiders, but he almost beat the Bills, kept them competitive in 3 out of those 4 games. Didn't play great, but I didn't think it was as bad as people thought, especially considering what the Chargers were dealing with then. And there's, context, no Lyle McConkey, no Bradley Bozeman, no Josh Palmer, whatever. Still inexcusable to look like that. And my biggest problem is it just feels like he didn't keep that momentum, right? It doesn't feel like he held over some of those very valuable experiences that he should have learned during that 4-game stretch, to the point now, David, where it's if there is even a 1% chance that Justin Herbert is going to miss time at the beginning of this season, there's just absolutely no way to feel good about Easton Stick being the primary backup on this team.
Yeah, no, you absolutely can't put him out there. I mean, you look at the stat line and that is what it is, but then you put on the all 22 film and you watch and you see that he didn't go through progressions. He was always staring down his receivers. And he was also getting receivers hurt. Like, he threw a couple of hospital balls, one of them to Hayden Hurst, where he got absolutely smashed because Easton Stick threw the ball way too late. I mean, it's just, there was so much inconsistency, a lot of just bad play. I mean, he wasn't able to extend plays, didn't, feel pressure, didn't step up in the pocket. There just wasn't any redeeming qualities whatsoever from Easton Stick's performance. And with him being the primary backup of this football team, that is a massive, massive concern, especially when your starting quarterback is hurt right now. And there's some, there's some insecurity and instability in that position. You just don't know who's going to be ready to go week one. And if it's not Justin, it can't be Easton.
No, and we'll get more into that tomorrow as far as, what are the options out there tomorrow, getting into buy or sell, biggest storylines and overreactions. I don't think it's an overreaction at all right now to say the Chargers need a new primary backup at quarterback. But yeah, the most problematic one easily was the throw to Hayden Hurst, just on multiple levels. Like, it was a bad throw, first of all, way over. Like, he got his hands on it, right? But like, you can't throw high over the middle. Number one, that's like the first thing you learn. Like, that those turn into tip balls, turn into interceptions if you throw it high over the middle.
And that's exactly what happened.
Threw it high over the middle, and also you have to protect your receivers. Like, Justin Herbert doesn't get nearly enough credit for, the job he does not getting his receivers absolutely smashed as soon as they catch the football.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like when you have someone that, isn't on that level. Like, you just set up Hayden Hurst, a meaningful player in this offense, we think, in 2024, and almost got him killed. Like, it, not literally, but like, you get what I'm saying? Like, he got him absolutely smashed.
He got smoked.
He almost got him hurt, maybe even a worse injury, and we'll see what it is. It doesn't seem like it, but who knows, right? And that's a guy who's dealt with some injury problems. That was not Hayden Hurst's fault, right? It's Easton Stick. You can't have that. So that was super problematic. But there was, I think, I thought Max Duggan played better than what I saw in very limited snaps last year, especially with how bad it's, reportedly been for him in training camp. Thought he looked fine. But it was Luis Perez, David, that definitely brought the most excitement, the most kind of salvageable feelings, I think, for this quarterback group. And I think especially because he came in and, had a 36-yard throw on the second snap that he took in this game. Beautiful throw. Had a few really, really good throws. But he, to me, looked the best out of any of the Chargers quarterbacks, even though the stat line was pretty uninspiring, too.
Yeah, I mean, not a crazy stat line, right? But 5 of 12 for 61 yards, including that bomb that he had to Jalen Johnson, which was a great play. That was a fantastic play. But for me, it's about what it looked like. He looked the most comfortable out of any of the other quarterbacks in the pocket. He was able to step up, move around, extend the play a little bit, even, through a little of those, kind of dump passes to get rid of the ball, to keep the drives alive.
Yeah.
And he's doing all of this being under contract for 5 days. Right. Why is it that we have a quarterback that got signed 5 days ago that looks more comfortable than your backup that's been here for 5 years? That is a horrible situation to be in. And for me, it makes me want to see a lot more of Luis Perez.
Absolutely. I think we all do. I mean, Luis Perez, obviously a third quarterback in this game. Seahawks had their starting defense out there when Easton Stick was out there, right? So it's a little bit different. At the same time, though, for Easton Stick, you just don't have those excuses, right? Luis Perez, it's still 5 of 12, right? The 5.1 average. It's nothing to write home about. 58 passer rating, but didn't take any sacks. When he had to check it down, he checked it down. Had another great throw down the sideline, too, that could have been a touchdown. Receiver got interfered with, wasn't called. But yeah, the sense of poise in the pocket, the calmness there. I mean, he completely stole all of the reps from, UDFA quarterback Casey Bauman, right? They just were like, yeah, nope, you're skipped. You don't get any snaps in this game. We want to see what Luis Perez has. And he gave us enough to want to see more. And I think that's somewhat of an indictment of Easton Stick. But also, I think, goes to what he was able to show in very limited snaps. But I think a lot of people were wondering, what would Joe Alt look like in his first real live game action? And the news is, he played pretty good. And I'm excited to talk about it. I think he acquitted himself well. So we're going to get into that and some other offensive guys who stood out and more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast. First, I need to tell you guys about LinkedIn Jobs, because when you're hiring for your small business and you want to find a quality professional that is right for the role, you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs, because LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even if they aren't actively searching for a new job but might be open to an opportunity for a perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place, because you're just getting rid of so many candidates who could potentially come in and help you. And I think for me, always, the biggest thing with LinkedIn is finding those quality candidates, because you don't want to be putting the same job up for free on LinkedIn a couple months later because you got the wrong fit. An ecosystem in a workplace environment is very fragile at times. Make sure you're giving yourself the best chance to fill that with someone who is going to help your team find success. And it's the reason why 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. David, let's talk a little bit more about the offensive side of things. And we didn't get to see Ladd McConkey, which sucked, because, you know, he returned to practice, was dressed for the game at one point, and then at some point,
why?
Yeah.
Why even do that?
Oh, that was the worst
emotions
cheese
like
ever,
that.
man.
I don't appreciate that, Coach Harbaugh. Like, if you're listening, and I know you are, because I mean, of course, don't ever do that again.
Yeah. Oh, David's making demands already. No, I mean, it's
I love you,
interesting
Coach.
because Kamani Vidal was the same way, right?
Yeah.
So it makes me wonder if it's like a rookie thing. Like, hey, go through the motions. You're going to be playing on this team. Go do what it's going to look like and get a little bit of experience doing that. If not, I don't know what the other reason would be, right? Because I'm guessing they knew they weren't playing all along, even when they dressed them up.
They had to, yeah.
We didn't hear about anybody actually injuring anything while they were warming up. So I think it was planned all along for those guys not to play. But we did get to see Joe Alt, the 5th overall pick. Especially, you had to see him because of, you know, the scrutiny that came along with that pick, the Chargers' decision to make a statement pick on the offensive line to fit the Jim Harbaugh culture and what Greg Roman wants to do offensively. And he looked good. That's the main takeaway here. He looked, I mean, for his, you know, first game playing right tackle since, you know, I think maybe he played it a little bit as a freshman, but not in games at Notre Dame. Like, he didn't ever really play right tackle his entire career. This is his first real game action at that spot, and I thought he played very, very well.
Yeah, he did. I mean, it's 13 pass block snaps. He only allowed one pressure, and I think that one has an asterisk next to it just because Trey Pipkins kind of blocked Uchenna Nwosu a little bit closer into Easton Stick.
Yeah.
And now Easton Stick, you know, like me and you were talking about before this show started, he should have stepped up in the pocket. And then we're not even talking about this as a pressure for Joe Alt. But I think, you know, he acquitted himself extremely well. You know, he looked very comfortable out there on the right side. You can tell he's been putting the work in. He was able to provide a combo block, which is ridiculous for a guy that's 6'8", 320 pounds. Like, he's just deceptively athletic.
Yeah.
And I think just overarching, man, like, there's a lot of skepticism, you know, there for taking a tackle with the 5th overall pick, right? You know, us included. We wanted a wide receiver. That didn't happen. And, you know, they went with Joe Alt. And, you know, at least this makes you feel a lot better about what this offensive line could be, because part of what this identity of this football team is going to run through the offensive line. That physicality, that dominance, you know, that has to start up front. And Joe Alt seems like he is going to champion that cause for Coach Harbaugh.
I think one of the things I really appreciate from him is, like, it's very hard for him to lose quickly.
Yeah.
Because he's so athletic, because he has such good length and all of those things. Like, there was one time where he completely slipped, but, like, still found a way to, you know, kind of like threw the dude, pushed the dude like 2 yards back, and, you know, gave the quarterback a chance to get rid of the football. And that's what you need. You don't need him blocking somebody for 5 seconds, right? You need him to get the job done. And I thought run game, I thought he hit his spots and got to the guys he needed to get to. And I thought in pass blocking, he looked really good. I mean, I was very impressed with him in his first game. Yeah, Uchenna Nwosu is not Max Crosby or TJ Watt, but like you said, I mean, could have stepped up in the pocket a little bit there. I think for Joe Alt, the importance here is, like, this is the dude who's going to be protecting Justin Herbert week 1, almost regardless of what happens from here on out, even if he didn't play another snap in the preseason. So
that's true.
To have this sign and not, you know, to have this game and not look like he's overmatched, right, or just like really struggling, that's huge for this
brings
team.
you some peace, some calmness.
And that's not a given, right? It's not like the defensive line is going, you know, half speed. Alex Leatherwood gave up 6 pressures in this game. So let's talk about
20
the rest
pass blocking snaps.
Yeah. The rest of the offensive line, kind of as a whole, I don't get a really great grade for me. I mean, overall, the line gave up 15 pressures on 35 dropbacks and 3 sacks. That's 43% of the dropbacks were pressured in this game. It's not just the quarterbacks, right? It's layered. You have other guys who are responsible for bad offensive performances. And in the running game, they weren't really opening things up. When the starters were out there, which was really only the first 2 3 and outs of the game, it was okay run blocking wise as far as opening things up, and we know it has to do with the tight ends and receivers and all that too.
Yeah,
just what wasn't great, man. Like it just there's not much for the offensive line as a whole for a team that really wants their identity to be their offensive line and wants that to be a weapon. It wasn't much of a weapon in the first preseason game.
Yeah. The weapons were a little bit dull, right? I think we still got to sharpen those weapons up. We got to bring them to the grindstone and make sure we go back to the lab and get back to work, because there's still a lot of work that needs to be done, especially for me on the interior of the offensive line. I don't feel like the guard play and the center play was very good at all. There were several completely missed blocks. Which
I think you got to be kind of more specific too, just because it's like interior could be, Zion Johnson.
Yeah,
right?
and I'm more so saying,
Brendan
Hymus, and then your second and third string, offensive lineman in the middle. I mean, overall, there wasn't a lot of open lanes to run through, for any
point in the game.
Running backs, really at any point in the game. Yeah, you're right.
And like the thing is like the running backs, you can't really look at the rushing total of 77 yards, right? Because it has 27 yards from 3 quarterback runs. That doesn't really tell you anything about the offensive line. The running back specifically had 50 yards on 15 carries with a long of 16, which means 14 of those carries went for 34 yards. Just not good. 3.3 average overall. Jarrett Patterson had a 116-yard run on a late play, draw play before the half where the defense was playing, prevent coverage on like a 3rd and 23. Hard to feel great about that. That was the biggest run of the night. Spiller goes 5 for 5. Elijah Dotson 3 for 7, 2.3 average. Spiller 1.0 average. Just not a lot to feel good about there. This is a team that we're expecting the offensive line to be much, much better, for the running game to be a legitimate weapon for this team.
Yeah.
So want to see better. It's still very early. But David, if you're looking for silver linings offensively for this offense, did you find any?
Yeah. I think there's 2 silver linings for me. I mean, it's the guy we touched on a little bit ago with Joe Alt. I think that's definitely a silver lining for me. As a guy who's switching from the left side to the right side at the NFL level, I feel like he looked comfortable. I feel like he handled his pass protection duties very well, and he looked like he knew what he was doing and showed athleticism as a run blocker. And I felt like Brendan Rice got open several times while I was watching and rewatching. I think like he didn't really get an opportunity to really shine. He got a couple targets, but none of them were, really particularly great.
No.
So I liked what I saw from him from that aspect, because that's really all I had to evaluate him was how he was running his routes. If he was creating separation, if he was open, I feel like he was open quite a bit.
Yeah. I mean, Brandon Rice should have, hopefully better opportunities. I think he's acquitted himself in training camp. Simi Fehoko also goes, 3 catches, 30 plus yards, most of that on 1 catch, but it was really hard for the wide receivers to make meaningful plays in this one because, Brandon Rice had 3 targets. I don't remember him even getting really close to getting his hands on one of them. Like just wasn't really given an opportunity, but I loved this silver lining from Daniel Popper. I love Daniel Popper from The Athletic. And it was something I was going to look up, but I saw it there, and I have to give him credit for this. And he said, worth noting, Harbaugh's San Francisco 49ers lost 24-3 in their first preseason game in 2011 when he took over the 49ers after being at Stanford. The offense managed just 10 first downs, where the Chargers had 9 on Saturday night. The offense managed just 10 first downs and 234 total yards. Quarterbacks Alex Smith and Colin Kaepernick, 2, quarterbacks more prestigious, obviously, than Easton Stick, combined for 127 passing yards on 26 attempts. So
that's eerily similar.
Very, very, bad. That is, something. Obviously, Popper also mentioned that year they went and made the NFC Championship game. So
13-3. Yeah.
The other silver lining is this is preseason week 1, and I think the Easton Stick concern is legitimate. Like Alex Leatherwood, okay, you want to turn over every stone. some stones don't change their stripes.
He's a
right?
turnstile.
Like
Still is.
Yeah, like Alex Leatherwood might just be Alex Leatherwood, might just be always who we thought he was. That just could be, a
He
situation.
is who we thought he was.
Exactly. And if you want to use Trey Pipkins as like a swing tackle, then maybe you keep, you start opening it up a little bit more at guard and see if any of these guys can push them for a spot. So, no Herbert in this game, obviously. No Ladd McConkey, no Josh Palmer, no Bradley Bozeman. I'd say, a couple under the radars. I thought Jalen Johnson and Jalen Gill both looked good, for different reasons. Jalen Johnson makes the big play down the sideline. Yeah. Jalen Gill ends up having a 43-yard kick return, which was awesome. Looked really good. And a 19-yard punt return. So I think if you're a player like that, trying to make a practice squad, more than likely, being able to do that and show that you can, be a backup to two pretty small dudes in Ladd McConkey and Darius Davis.
Very small.
You could do a lot worse than that. But we want to get to the defensive side of things because that was the most encouraging thing. The defense looked good under Jesse Minter, and there was a ton of guys who stood out. So we're going to talk about them coming up and more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast. First, I need to tell you guys about eBay Motors because passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. And eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. You'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts that you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. David, well, there's a lot of negative, obviously, when you score 3 points and lose 16-3. That's how it's going to be a little bit. But there were a ton of positives, I think, especially on the defensive side. I thought Jesse Minter's defense looked good. And obviously, we're seeing a fraction of what this defense is actually going to look like, and not many starters playing very long. But I thought it was very encouraging. But I do want to tell everyone thank you, as always, even after a game like that, for making us your first listen. Make your second listen Locked On Fantasy Football so you can beat all of your friends and get the best insight that you're going to find fantasy football-wise so you can bring it home, probably win some money as well this year. So make sure you guys go subscribe to Locked On Fantasy Football wherever you get your podcast from and on YouTube. David, Jesse Minter's defense, good. I mean, I liked it. I mean, I think, 14 or 13, I guess, points coming in the first half, a couple of touchdown drives. One of them set up directly after a bad interception by Easton Stick. But overall, man, I think you like what you saw there, given who was out there.
One of those touchdowns was complete bogus because they missed a obvious holding call that allowed the running back to get into the end zone. And that's not a given because the Seahawks had an opportunity to get into the end zone, and they got stopped. So if they missed it, the refs don't miss that call, then we might be looking at a little bit of a different situation. It's preseason for them too.
I was going to say, what do they say? It's preseason for the refs as well. I mean, so many, man. The Tuli below 2-1, that was the most, like one of the most egregious missed calls I've ever seen.
Yeah, it was just awful. I mean, 325 total yards allowed. The defense, like I said, was on the field for 39 minutes and 9 seconds. Allowed only 169 yards passing and 1 touchdown. They also racked up 3 sacks. And also felt like, they were like Jesse Minter was getting really creative with what he was doing with the slot blitzes, with the safety blitzes. He was, for a preseason game, he was dialing it up a little bit and, he was wreaking havoc. But I think the defense just as a whole, it feels much different. It feels like it's a lot sharper. Feel like they are swarming to the football. I feel like, this is a defense that, even the version that we saw, which, you said is missing, probably 4 or 5 key members with Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack, Derwin James, so on and so forth. If it looks like this with just, a more skeleton version of it, just imagine what it's going to look like when you add all of the other dogs to what this defense is going to be. So as bad as the offense looked, I think the defense had quite a few things redeeming wise that you feel like you can take going forward. Yeah,
and the 325 yards allowed is the worst part of that. And a couple of those were just bad plays late in the game where it was really your, 4th and 5th string dudes out there where they give a couple.
12, 3rd and 15.
Yeah. I mean, that's, giving up 11 out of 20 third downs isn't good, 150 rushing yards on the surface doesn't seem great, but it was only a 4.0 average, and I actually thought that their run defense looked good. Didn't have any problem with that at all. The whole goal line stand was awesome. The other starters you're talking about, like Christian Fulton, Asante Samuel Jr. played one series and got out of it. And Alohi Gilman, same thing. And so to look like that with that many kind of younger dudes, and I thought was really good. So talking about standout players, who would you start with? Because there's a bunch. We're not going to be able to get to all of them, but who stood out to you that you want to bring up first?
Yeah, so quickly on the defensive line, I liked what I saw from Otito Obonya. I feel like Tito was very healthy. He looks healthy, and that's very good news for the Chargers and their defense.
The whole defensive line played pretty well.
Scott
pretty
Matlock
much the whole
as
game.
well. Morgan Fox had a nice play kind of on one of the first series.
Yeah.
But then to me, it's the linebackers, Daniel. It's Nick Neimann, who had 12 tackles, a sack, and 2 tackles for loss. And after a missed tackle early that led to a touchdown, he was nails the rest of the game. He was locked in, showed really good vision and patience, ability to shed blocks, and provided some stopping power. Like really looked good. And to me, honestly, Nick Niemann's always been just a solid player, and I feel like he continued to showcase that. And then Troy Dye, and the other linebacker, 4 tackles, a sack, a tackle for loss, and he had 2 plays kind of back to back where. Sam Howell was trying to, get somebody open, but he stopped that on the 3rd down conversion. Then the next play, he beat the guard really bad on a rush and blew up the play, and then got a sack. So, a couple of plays back to back for Troy Dye that makes you feel like, okay, well, if he needs to step in on defense, then, you feel comfortable with his ability there.
Yeah, and it feels like, with the Junior Coulson of it all and him not being able to play, it does feel like Troy Dye is that next guy, right? Yep. Deion Henley, pretty pedestrian game, I think. Nothing, no splash plays to really write home about. And he's the presumed starter, and I don't think he did anything to really hurt that cause either. No. But I did think Nick Neimann and Troy Dye were the guys that stood out the most. Per PFF, Nick Neimann had 7 defensive stops in the game, which constitutes a failure for the offense when you make that tackle or pass breakup or whatever it is. The next closest defender had 2. Big part of that is Nick Neimann was out there for 61 snaps, and then by far the most on the defense. But yeah, Troy Dye, a sack, 2 pressures. Nick Neimann gets a sack as well. I really like that, and Troy Dye probably shouldn't have had a sack because JT Woods should have had a sack.
Yeah.
But yeah, going back to what you said about the slot corners, like slot corners in safeties, they were putting safeties at slot corner. They're putting their slot corners at safeties at time. And it makes you kind of realized in this game why they're cross-training these guys. Like I saw Tarheeb still playing safety at one point in this game. I saw JT Woods in the slot blitzing in this game. But I thought that the slot is such an important position, and you saw that, and those guys all made plays. Tarheeb still had 2 balls batted down on blitzes, which is awesome, right? Got in, batted the ball down both times, get him around the ball, he'll make plays. AJ Finley, same thing, batted the ball down, just like we saw against the Rams, right? All those turnovers, where a lot of those were tip passes and guys making plays on the ball and tipping the ball up in the air. They didn't get any turnovers in this game, but you saw the plays that will end up being turnovers.
That will translate, yes.
Thomas Harper, undrafted free agent slot/safety. He blitzes,
the quarterback.
Got a sack. Smoked the quarterback and smoked a dude on one of the kick returns too to hold him to the 14-yard line on one of those kick returns. That's Thomas Harper. Yeah, that's stock up for that guy.
Tony Jefferson also smoked a running back too. On one of the last plays, he ran absolutely straight through.
Didn't get in until late, but he made his presence felt in a very short time. JT Woods blitzed, should have had a sack and missed it. I'd say up and down for JT Woods.
Yeah, he had some missed tackles, man. I was watching just a couple of different opportunities where he was trying to ankle tackle, and I just can't see that. He looked good with the pass breakup. The coverage ability I'm not worried about. That's not a concern for me. It's the tackling, and it's
did make a nice open field tackle on a big play that probably may have saved a touchdown on it as the last line of defense guy. I have to give credit there where that's due. Yeah. I think he was credited with 1 missed tackle in this game. Another one that wasn't even a missed tackle just bothered me because one of the first plays of the game, he was playing safety, early on in the game at the very least.
Yeah.
And Jackson Smith and Jigba just blocked him out of the screen on a running play. And I just that drove me nuts, man.
If you can't get washed out by
you just have to play more physical. You can't get yourself taken out of the play like that, man. Like that was just tough. So
It's not even a tight end. It's a receiver.
sure, but hey, a pressure. Should he have had a sack? Yes. So I mean,
definitely should have.
that's a missed tackle. That's the big one. Missed sack right there. Troy Dye cleans it up right after, so
Right.
it doesn't feel like it's super important. Broke really quickly on the pass breakup that he could have, but
Oh yeah.
it just has to be a little bit more well-rounded for JT Woods. We've seen flashes before. Can he show in the last 2 preseason games that he can have the good with less of the bad? There's no perfect players. You're talking about guys who are second and third string.
Right.
But with him, the physicality is a big part of it. You said it, Tito Bonia, defensive line, I thought good, looked good. Scott Malik had a couple of moments, including where he blew up a screen pass and held on to the running back's jersey and didn't make the tackle. Counted it as a missed tackle, which sucks, but held them long enough for the rest of the defense to get there for a tackle for loss.
Yeah.
Really like that. Huge goal line stand where Gerard Clark was in there clogging things up. Shane
Love
Lee that had that really cool story with his dad who suffered the heart problems and was at camp. He made a really big play on that goal line stand where it's like, hey, if he gets truck sticked, it's a touchdown. He got to stop the guy on the half-yard line, and that's hard to do with a guy coming at you full speed. Lots of, game balls to go around. Cameron Dicker, still awesome.
58 yards like it was nothing.
Special teams, good.
monster.
Outside of one, big return. That's going to happen, with the new rules. So nothing to panic about right there. But that's going to wrap things up for today's show. Thank you for checking out. We appreciate the everydayers, as always, for coming by. A lot more this week, right? We got more games coming up. Now we kind of know what we're looking at with this team. Tomorrow we'll be getting into buy or sell, potentially some backup quarterback options because it just was an inexcusably bad performance from Easton Stick and that whole crew offensively. So it's got to be addressed. It should be addressed. And I think, we'll talk about some other big time kind of overreactions and stuff. Hey, are we overreacting this? Are we keeping it in context? First preseason game of the year. So to make sure you guys don't miss it, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from, as well as finding the show every day on our social media. You can find me on Twitter at Dan Talk Sports, David at Drew Talk SD, and the show's page at Locked On LAC. You can also find us on Instagram at Locked On Chargers and our Locked On Chargers Facebook page. But if you guys want to call to the voicemail line for buy or sell tomorrow, you can get in there at 323-524-7924 or hit us up at Locked On LAC. But make sure you're here to talk about the biggest Chargers storylines and overreactions after one preseason game. But until then, you guys, take it easy and go Bolts.